Donald Trump and that Trump audio that came out from Access Hollywood. There was a whole plan with this audio. It did not happen by chance. The leak didn't happen by chance, and the timing was not by chance. What we have found out from many sources at NBC and also connected to Access Hollywood is that the plan was for this audio to come out at a certain time so that NBC could influence the election and the debate, and more immediately, the debate. The plan was for the audio to come out on Friday, last Friday, which is that NBC and Access Hollywood were going to do stories about that audio on Friday. However, they were going to edit out Billy Bush's part of it, and that the plan was to do it on Friday because
Sunday night
debate, get the most impact. It would be the thing that was talked about most during the debate. And that would certainly be like that would be something that Donald Trump would then have to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, that got derailed by Hurricane Matthew. What we found out is that Hurricane Matthew was wall-to-wall coverage all day Friday, and NBC, the people at NBC News said, let's hold off. This is not a good idea because it's going to get lost in all the coverage there of the hurricane. It's not going to dominate the news like we want it to. It's not going to have the impact that we want it to have on the Trump campaign. So the plan was to hold it off till Monday. Somebody at NBC then found out about that. Somebody at NBC and or Access said, we don't like that, and ended up leaking it to the Washington Post. And that's why it ended up coming out on Friday from the Washington Post.
And that's where it gets tricky, guys, because we are hearing a bunch of different stuff about that. Whether or not it is a staffer at NBC who politically was upset they were holding it because they didn't want Trump to be able to do the debate without that coming out, or whether NBC as a whole, because we were told by one source that Access Hollywood, the guy that runs Access Hollywood, he wanted to wait because he knew he'd get a lot more traction on Monday from how big the story was once the hurricane was gone. So
yeah, there was a good chance that, by the way, that Access Hollywood probably, and actually I don't remember if on Friday, if it aired a lot of places. I mean, there may have been a lot of hurricane coverage, so it could have been preempted.
By Friday night, those were the two big stories, and the news was toggling between the two. But interestingly, it came out with Billy Bush in it. So that sort of goes against the idea that NBC was behind the leak, because if they wanted to keep Billy Bush out in the first instance, presumably they would have wanted to keep him out in the second instance as well.
But whoever gave it to the Washington Post gave them the full
version, right?
Well, that's where the second part of this getting tricky is that then, because the full thing came out and there was an overwhelming bad reaction to not only Trump, but also what Billy Bush did in this video and audio, the problem with that is then they had to make a decision to do something to Billy Bush, which they did publicly. They suspended him indefinitely.
Mike, hold on one second, and I want to get to Billy Bush. We're going to get to it in just a second, because you're right, there's something very interesting there. But let's not just wash over the fact that you have a plan by, and we don't know how many people, but if there's a plan from a news organization to purposefully influence the debate and therefore the election, that is a big deal. I mean, the media.
And I tried to skip by this because Jason said it.
No, well, listen, and we can get into it. Like we've been talking about this morning.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal for anyone to do that.
The media is supposed to
specifically affect the election.
You cover the campaign, you cover the candidates, you cover the things they say. You can have opinions about the things they say, but when you purposefully, and the other thing that we should mention, Mike, is that this audio, it wasn't like NBC just found out about the audio and then they were deciding, do we do it Friday or do we do it Monday?
They held it.
They had it. They knew they had it back in August at the very least, and maybe even earlier than that. If you have it in August, why do you not do it in August?
There are two possible explanations for that. Number one, the explanation that we're throwing forward, which is that they wanted to impact the election. Or number two, they wanted to get the highest amount of ratings. Now, if it's number two, I don't think anybody would disagree with their decision, right? I mean, it would be nice if they came out immediately, I suppose, but
you're going to get, of that audio, you're going to get the ratings no matter what.
Nobody's as tuned into the election in August as they are in October. But let's even assume the worst, according to you guys, which is that they held on to it because they wanted to impact the election. I think it's frankly a little bit naive to think that news media, especially today, but it has always been, is not trying to influence the election. Derek Kaufman made a very good point today, which is every newspaper in the country, both conservative and liberal, issues their preferred choice for the office. They endorse a candidate for president. the president because they want to influence their readers to
And
vote
maybe
for that
and
candidate.
they probably shouldn't do that either.
Well, that's a time, maybe not, but that's a different discussion because it's a time-honored tradition going back literally hundreds of years and maybe even further than that, that news media organizations have come out in favor of one candidate or against another. Look, you know, Fox News is a more conservative news magazine, news channel.
Doesn't that seem more passive to you to say, look, we are endorsing this candidate, but to actually release an 11-year-old tape and time the release of that 11-year-old tape and hold on to it until you get closer to the election, that's more than just passively saying we endorse a candidate.
It's certainly more passive, but what my suggestion is that
the tape is more active.
Yeah, the tape, but not. This doesn't happen very often, right? Where you have an audio tape that can influence an election.
Hi, Carice from Pennsylvania here, and I think the timing was perfect. I think America's nervous, so whoever leaked this information knew exactly what they were doing with the debate because they know that the time is coming near for the election, and they want to influence us. They want us to know that this is the kind of person you guys are considering to be the president of the United States of America, and you need to know exactly how he feels about women, how he talks behind closed doors, and I think the timing was perfect, and I think it's definitely
Carice,
influencing what's going on right now.
You think the timing is perfect because you're not voting for Trump, correct?
Correct.
All right.
But
therefore
do you think do you have a problem generally with news magazines and news channels holding on to these tapes until to get the maximum possible bang in the election context, not just for money, but for the influencing the election?
I think that is an issue too. I think wasn't last month someone anonymously sent his tax papers to the New York Times and they released it. Like, things are happening back to back. I don't think it's just the timing. I think people just want to push their agenda and get everyone to know like what's going on with Trump.